What it do? It's your boy K Sims. Welcome back to the KPHONICS podcast. Happy MLK Day, everybody. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I hope everybody did everything that they wanted to do, achieved what they wanted to achieve, and bought what they wanted to buy. Happy MLK Day, everybody. Once again, I hope everybody is enjoying this day off. And if you're not familiar with who MLK is, hopefully today your parents will sit down and tell you the significance of what MLK, what he means to us in our community. And if you don't have anybody to talk to about that, then hopefully you do your research. I just want to pay my respects to MLK and his family. You mean a lot to me. You mean a lot to the community. Just wanted to start off by saying that today is a great week for me because this week is fight week. This Saturday, Lamont Peterson faces off against the Truth Errol Spence Jr. Now, if you're not familiar with any of these two individuals, these are two professional boxers. Lamont Peterson has been in the game for many years. If you're not familiar with Lamont Peterson, he has a tremendous story of being homeless at 10 years old, and his trainer Barry Hunter took him and his brother Anthony Peterson into his home and trained them to have great amateur pedigrees, and then also trained them to have great professional pedigrees as well. Lamont Peterson has been in there with many other big names such as Timothy Bradley, Amir Khan, Victor Ortiz, Danny Garcia, Lucas Matisse, and now he's stepping in the ring with Errol Spence. If you're not familiar with Errol Spence Jr., he's a young up-and-coming fighter out of Dallas, DeSoto, Texas to be exact. His most notable win is from Kell Brook. He went over to the UK and won the IBF championship from Kell Brook. His other most notable win is from Chris Algieri, who was a two-time champion. He had been in there with the likes of Manny Pacquiao, if you haven't heard of Chris Algieri. But I'm excited about this fight. It is this Saturday, and I'm expecting Errol Spence to win. These are two of the most prominent body punchers in the game. Before there was a Errol Spence, Lamont Peterson was the best body puncher in the game until Errol Spence came along. Errol Spence is a young, hungry champion. He likes to come forward, take the fight to his opponent, and get it out of there early. He can box. He is a great fighter, one of the slickest southpaws that I've ever seen and the boxing game has ever seen. Lamont Peterson, he can do it all. He can box. He can fight on the inside. But I think majority for this fight, he's going to probably pick and choose when to fight in the inside. But for the majority of the part of the time, I expect him to box. Sort of kind of what he did against Danny Garcia, but probably he won't be as strategic. I think me personally, he beat Danny Garcia, but he was not very aggressive enough in the early rounds in order for the judges to be forced to give him a decision. He definitely came alive in the championship rounds, but in those early rounds he was a little bit more in and out, and of course judges and casual fans don't like when fighters do that. They rather two guys being in the center of the ring and just throw punches with each other. They don't want to see individuals in and out, hit, not get hit, stick and move. Individuals, they don't want to see that. But I see Errol Spence's future is very bright. The welterweight division is on notice. Outside of Terrence Crawford, there hasn't been really many welterweights who are eager to be stepping into the ring with him. The likes of Danny Garcia, Shawn Porter, and Keith Thurman have all engaged in politics to either hold off on the fight or just maneuver their way around him for the time being. Keith Thurman's name has been attached to Errol Spence since 2015, and this is when Floyd was fighting. Keith Thurman was calling out everybody, and he specifically really wanted Floyd Mayweather, but Floyd Mayweather looked at him and said, "You need to fight Errol Spence." Keith Thurman was not too happy about that, and he felt disrespected, and he looked at Errol Spence as a guy that shouldn't even be mentioned with him. Danny Garcia stated that he was a good little young up-and-coming fighter and that he needed to fight good fighters in order for him to be considered elite. Shawn Porter just said that he's not ducking Errol Spence, but the top guys is him, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman. Well, now since Errol Spence has beaten the guy that Sean Porter has lost to, and he's also beaten a guy that Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman didn't go up against, and he's taken the belt from them. So now he's a champion. He currently holds the IBF title. And Keith Thurman holds the WBO and the WBC belt. And currently Jeff Horn, he holds the other belt, but he's across the pond, so we won't talk about him too much. But after Errol Spence beats Lamont Peterson, I'm very excited to see who he faces next. I mean, you do have Lucas Matisse, he's in the mix. I don't know if Lucas Matisse will fight Spence. I don't know, Matisse doesn't back down from anybody, so I do think that he will fight Spence, but Matisse's eye is really kind of on Danny Garcia, rematch with Danny Garcia. I mean, Danny Garcia has basically utilized these tactics like he's the next Floyd Mayweather and tried to necessarily pick and choose who he wants to fight. Now, Danny Garcia is fighting Brandon Rios, so that's most likely, that's kind of expected, coming off of almost a year layoff, and then you want to pick a guy who's not necessarily a tune-up, but a tune-up in most people's eyes, to get back into the ring, to build his name back up. Now, who he fights after that, it all depends on Danny Garcia. I know he wants his belt back, his belts. Well, his belt, he only had one belt, which was the WBC, but I'm sure he's gonna want the WBA and the WBC that Keith Thurman currently holds. I'm sorry, I might have said the WBO earlier that he holds. That's Jeff Horn owns the WBO, but the WBA and the WBC are the belts that Keith Thurman currently holds as of this moment. And I know Errol Spence is very eager to unify the IBF, WBA, and WBC. So we'll see if Keith Thurman wants to trump a mandatory with Danny Garcia. I know that Keith Thurman is tied up with Jesse Vargas. At least that is the word right now, that he's going to be fighting coming back. And then since he's been off for some time due to inactivity, specifically him having to have surgery, he has to have 2 mandatory defenses. The first mandatory defense is against Sean Porter. We've already seen that fight before. I expect the same outcome. The next mandatory, if Danny Garcia gets past Brandon Rios, then the winner out of those 2 will be the next mandatory in line for Keith Thurman. Now, individuals suspect Danny Garcia to win that fight, so we're basically getting the same lineup that we have gotten from the WBC in 2017, now going into 2018. Instead of us seeing Keith Thurman fight Errol Spence right after Jesse Vargas, we're seeing an old 2017 matchup of him fighting Sean Porter first, then backdooring and fighting Danny Garcia again. So individuals are really not too excited about it. At least I know I'm not. I'd rather have Keith Thurman have a Jesse Vargas fight, maybe have another fight in between, whoever that is. It could be Sean Porter or Danny Garcia, but not both. Just pick one. Mainly, if I had to choose between the 2, I probably would say Danny Garcia again, but I mean, Sean Porter's a hell of a matchup as well, good solid competitor, but I probably would rather see him fight Danny Garcia again, because it's real bad blood between those 2, because Danny Garcia does feel as if that he's won, so I think it would be a lot more entertaining to see. But another individual that's on that same card this Saturday is an individual by the name of Robert Easter Jr. Now, if you're not too familiar with him, he is promoted by none other than Adrian the Problem Broner. Currently, just like Errol Spence, he holds the IBF title, but he's at a smaller weight class. He's at 135. He's not at 147. So he currently holds the IBF belt at 135. There were talks recently that he was supposed to face Mikey Garcia through, and now he's facing another opponent. Robert Easter Jr. is a big man for somebody who makes 135 pounds. I mean, the man is 5'11", for God's sake. That is a big, tall man for individuals at 135. I see why, Mikey Garcia wouldn't want to fight him right now because, as Mikey Garcia stated, that's probably his most difficult and toughest opponent. I mean, Jorge Linares probably would be his, toughest opponent in terms of weight. But Robert Easter Jr. is his most toughest opponents in terms of height, reach, and skills. Jorge, now don't get me wrong, Jorge Linares has skills too, but I mean, Robert Easter Jr. has all those three, going up against Mikey Garcia in terms of height, reach, and skills. So I mean, if you had to choose between the two, sure, Mikey Garcia would pick to fight, Jorge Linares before he fights Robert Easter Jr. anytime soon. But that's neither here nor there. I'm at the fight game in 2018. We have a lot of fights, that is going on right now, and there's a lot of fights that need to be made that haven't been made yet. It is a business. I mean, in particular, Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua hasn't been made yet. Mikey Garcia versus Robert Easter Jr. hasn't been made yet. Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence hasn't been made yet. So I mean, we have a lot of fights, that hopefully gets made in 2018. They've been building up for quite some time, and I know fighters want to get the most compensation out of fights that they can get, especially when it comes to them facing their most toughest opponent. I do get that. Hopefully there won't be any more politics being played in order for these fights to happen, because they definitely do need to happen. Okay. Also, if you're a fan of the Charlo brothers, I actually got to meet Jermell Charlo and Best Buy. Great, humble dude. I know the Charlo brothers get a lot of flack of being, mean and very aggressive guys. Look, man, I went up to him straight up. The man shook my hand. He was very humble. Didn't have any aggressive, bone in his body. However, just as long as you don't talk shit to him, then, you're pretty much safe. But I mean, if you talk shit to him, then yeah, they're gonna fuck you up. But the older brother, the hitman, Jamal Charlo, he's fighting Hugo Jr. I'm not gonna try to pronounce his last name. I think it's Centenario Jr. He's the Hugo guy. He's most known for his no contest with J-Rock. J-Rock Julian Williams, also a guy at 154 that Jamal Charlo knocked out. But he's an individual who is most known for his no contest with J-Rock Julian Williams. He's fighting in, I believe it's February, those two are fighting. I know Jamal did a live stream from some platform, but he stated that he wasn't going to be on the Errol Spence undercard, and that his fight, he was trying to press it to be in Houston. I know those the twins in general, they want their fights to be in Houston. Currently Jamal is the mandatory for Gennady Golovkin's WBC. If you don't know who that is, that's Triple G at 160. This is for the interim belt, so if Triple G was to lose the WBC belt, then the winner out of Jamal and Hugo would automatically be named as the WBC champion. Canelo's not fighting for the WBC because they have a beef, so he's currently not fighting for those belts. So right now it's Jamal and Hugo fighting for the interim title, and will be named as the WBC champion if Gennady Golovkin loses his belt or decides to vacate. But that's if he decides to do that. Hopefully Jamal gets to fight Triple G. I think he personally stops Triple G. But I mean, seeing is believing, especially when you hear, if Triple G fans got a hold of it, of this information, of me saying this, they definitely would try to hand it to me. But, that's just my opinion. And like I said, seeing is believing. But yeah, man, check out the fight. This Saturday, Errol Spence versus Lamont Peterson. I am expecting a great fight. Two young champions duking it out who have a relationship with each other. But, they've stated that, this is business, and that night the relationship will be put aside and they're going to go in there and handle business. I do believe that Errol Spence will stop, Lamont Peterson. However, if it goes 12 rounds, I will not be surprised. I mean, I would be surprised because how hard Errol Spence punches, but I wouldn't be surprised due to, Lamont Peterson. Even though he got knocked out by Lucas Matisse, I think that he learned from that mistake. And I don't believe that he'll fight the same fight, especially with Errol Spence. But I'll be making another video about this on Saturday, well, especially the aftermath, and hopefully you guys tune in to watch the fight. I know I will be. I definitely will try to make fights this year in 2018, and hopefully I'll get some like live footage from that, so I can show you guys. But just tune in, watch the fight Saturday. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'm out. One.